Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cosmic Owl Astrology podcast, YouTube channel, whatever. I am Louise Edington, your cyberpunk priestess to the stars, cyberpunk witch priestess, whatever. Anyway, I'm here today to talk about this Sagittarius New Moon that's coming up on December the 19th. But before I do, I've got a couple of announcements. So on the 13th, December 13th, this coming Saturday, I am doing a webinar for Kepler College on Ceres. It's free. The registration link is below. And if you register, you can either show up to support me live or get the recording. I've got so many exciting things coming up. It's also my solar return that day on the 13th. My birthday is the 14th, and then we'll be away for a very short few days away for my birthday. And then when I come back from our few days away, I've got a couple of really exciting interviews I'm going to be doing on my YouTube channel. The first one is a chat with one of my clients. Actually, she has been researching the Saturn-Neptune cycles and coming up with some really interesting insights. And they are related to the turning of the ages, which we are in right now. And then the very next day, on the Sagittarius New Moon, or the day of, I will be talking to the author of the book Yuga Shift by Bibhu Dev Misri. He wrote the book, and he said that the Kali Yuga ended on March the 20th of this year. And now we are in what he calls a period of, well, we're in a transitional period now for 300 years, I think is what he said. He actually called it ekporosis. There's a bit of a confusion here about the dates, so I'll be asking him about that. But in the book, he talks about the Yuga cycle, which is an Indian Hindu kind of concept. And he also talks about in different cultures how they all say similar things, including the Hopi and various others. And he also does link it all to the precessional cycle of the zodiac, which is why we are moving out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. So anyway, all that to watch this space, watch for those interviews. I'm manically kind of researching a load of stuff, and I have very specific questions I would like to talk to Bibhu about. And some of it is about Three Eye Atlas. And why do I mention that? Because the new moon, the Sagittarius new moon, is the day that Three Eye Atlas is closest to Earth. So it's very exciting times, and things are heating up. As I record this, we currently have Kilauea was just massively erupting, really high eruptions and things. I don't think it breached the caldera, so I don't think there's lava kind of going out of it as yet. That could happen. Also, this morning we did have a 7.6 earthquake off the coast of Japan, and there's been quite a swarm of earthquakes in that area, but also heightened earthquake energy in general. Also, we have the sun. We're at solar maximum, which is the peak of the solar cycle. And the sun has been flaring. So many people have seen aurora this year, even in their own yard. That was including us. And that's because we're having some massive solar flares, and combined with this solar wind as well. Stefan Burns' YouTube channel is brilliant for tracking those. And he has tracked this increased solar flare activity to heightened earthquake and volcanic eruptions too. And I think it also shows in the astrology. So I've got a lot to talk about, but and I can't even cover it all. So, but as usual, I've pulled some cards for the new moon, and I encourage you that this is intensely crazy time, intense energy. All you can do is your self-care, looking after you and yours, and not living in fear, because these changes and shifts and expansion are so huge that we have very little control over it other than how we work with it. So anyway, here is the cards. We get the Seven of Cups, and as usual I will go through the whole thing at the end. Seven of Cups, and then we get the Hierophant. Get a bit of a theme going on here. And then we get the Goddess of Discs, the Snake Goddess. We've had her before. And then I pulled one from the Witch Oracle deck again, and this is Lady of Perpetual Rebirth. So stick around to the end to hear what those cards mean. It's a massive, massive new moon. So first of all, let me just, which chart to show you first? I think I will show you the chart without extras. I've made two charts because I tend to include a lot of extras, especially when things are kind of crazy like this. So, but I want to just show you the more basic new moon. Some people are going, you've still got loads of extras on. But anyway, the new moon is on December the 19th, on Venus Day, Friday. It will be on the 20th for many of you in the UK and Australia, New Zealand, all those areas to the east of I always set my chart for DC. So it's actually like 1:43 a.m. on the 20th, I think, universal time. But either way, this is the chart. So I'm just going to highlight a few things. So this is the new moon, 28 degrees Sag. It's conjunct asteroid Hecate, which you guys know I love. It's also conjunct Juno, which is sacred contracts, also women, children, all those good things. It's also conjunct Venus. Like all of these energies are really under the beams of the sun, and so is Mars. Mars will have moved into Capricorn by the time of this new moon, and Mars is said to be exalted in Capricorn, which means he's strong. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good. But also I do want to say that Mars will be square to Ceres on this new moon as well. The new moon is also square to Neptune, which has stationed direct by then and is starting to move slowly out of the last sign of the zodiac. It will be a while. Also Uranus. Uranus is at 28 degrees, and that's making a quincunx to the new moon. And so Uranus is right in the heart of the Pleiades there as well. It's that weeping, the seven sisters, said to be a very strong place in the zodiac. So we've got the Great Awakener kind of really playing a part, and we've got Neptune, the Great Dissolver, taking part as well. But I also do want to mention that Mars will be sextile to Haumea and semi-sextile to Pluto, who are now starting to move towards another square. So the next square will not be till 2026, but they're moving towards it now. They have 13 squares between 2022 and 2028, and I need to do a video looking at all these aspects these outer planets are making. Now, one other thing is that Mercury is here also in Sagittarius. Now, this is such a massive Sagittarius new moon, and I will talk about what it all means, but it's all squaring all this energy in Pisces. So there's a lot of stuff around faith and belief, but also Mercury is square to the nodes. And we've just had various other squares to the nodes on the Gemini full moon. The actual full moon with the moon in Gemini and the sun in Sagittarius at 13 degrees was making a mutable grand cross to the nodes. Well, now Mercury comes in, the messenger, and he says, and he's now moved out of the retrograde zone where he was retrograde, or where they were retrograde, because he's a very non-binary character, very shapeshifty, very trickstery, is squaring the nodes. And now all of these energies are moving towards the North Node, all of these personal planets. So there's a lot to talk about there. And so I'll really try to break it down because it's such a lot. But without trying to baffle you too much, I do want to bring in and just mention a couple of other things that are really important on this new moon. So here we have the galactic center, incidentally conjunct Hecate, which is the triple moon goddess. Oh gosh, she's also, the lower world, middle world, upper world. She's also the crossroads goddess, conjunct the galactic center. And this new moon is conjunct the galactic center, which is the bulge in the middle of the Milky Way. It literally is the center of the galaxy we are in. And so, but this is also the day that 3i Atlas flies closest to Earth, because 3i Atlas was first spotted back in July in the constellation Sagittarius A, which is where the galactic center is. Now, it wasn't coming from the galactic center, according to astronomers, but that's where it was first spotted. So Sagittarius A started near the galactic center, comes closest to Earth when we have a new moon conjunct the galactic center degree. And then we also, whereas 3i Atlas, because it's kind of come into our solar system and will fly out off into the unknown. It's an interstellar comet, they're calling it now, NASA. But when it starts to leave our solar system, it flies by Jupiter on March the 16th, I believe. Stefan Burns, he's my kind of go-to person with all of that. So all of this is just huge. Okay, it's just massive, right? So there's a couple of other things I've added too that you're going to go, what are you doing? Well, this is Manway. This is another galactic, it's another dwarf planet. The that's been discovered. I've not worked with Manway too much, but Manway in astrology is said to somebody said it's so Manway is related with a spontaneous change towards correct actions and attitudes from a karmic point of view. And so there's been very many kind of things going on, but I just want to look up. M. Kelly Hunt has done some work with Manway as well. Philip Sedgwick has done some as well. I kind of research them as much as I can, but there's so many newly discovered things. I don't know if Dwarf Planet University's got Manway. So anyway, Manway though is I don't have enough time to research all these things, right? So just bear with me while I talk about Manway a little bit. Oh. Manway astrology. Let me go back to that one again. So, okay. So in the astrological significance, let me tell you, it's named, first of all, it's a Kuiper Belt object named after the king of the Valar from Tolkien's mythology. So it's kind of the first dwarf planet not to be named after a god, apparently. So Manway is said to be about air and winds. It's about air and air element, communication, intellect, and we are entering an age of air. It's also said to be about divine intelligence and higher mind. So in Tolkien, Valor is most closely tuned to the original divine vision of Eru, the creator, making Manway a symbol of higher consciousness, universal perspective, and profound wisdom. It's also said to be about leadership and authority and overseeing the bigger picture, but it can also have blind spots to evil's true nature because of its proximity to the divine. And it also has a connection to nature because Manway relies on the giant eagles led by its companion object Thorondor for intelligence in Middle Earth, linking the object to nature, birds, which are very much about the air element, right? So you can see that it's an important being. So just to go back to all my little things, Manway is in Mars-ruled Aries, has been quite some time, has a very slow orbit, but is also speaking to Haumea, who I've talked about many times. There we go. And is also square to Mars on this new moon. And Mars is the guide for the sign of Aries and the traditional guide for the sign of Scorpio. These are such astounding times. Okay, this is just. But Manway is also making a sextile to Pluto, or Pluto is coming back up to aspect Manway again. And look at one of my favorites. Ceres is here. Ceres, what nurtures us, what nourishes us, our needs met and unmet, how we've got to learn to take care of our own needs. If it is to be, it's up to me in the sign of Aries. There's so many things I could say going on and on and on. But all these things are speaking to each other. We've also got asteroid Hygeia making a lovely cardinal T-square to Mars and Manway. And this is saying, we're being given the opportunity to awaken, because if we don't, I think there's probably going to be some big catastrophes, or some more big catastrophes may wake us up. There may be a really big earthquake, for example. Now, don't live in fear of it, because where it is, do your preparedness whatever you can, but this time is in such, it's just huge. Now then, I want to stop a little bit, and I do want to talk about this, the galactic center, okay, because my ascendant is on the galactic center. Now, Philip Sedgwick describes the galactic center as a defragger. Okay, it's said to bring in new information and clean out our hard drive. Now, this really kind of fits with some of what Bibhu Dev Misri is saying about the Yugas, about this kind of purification after the end of the Kali Yuga, where we've actually been getting dumber and more ignorant and more horrible and fighting each other. And according to him, the Kali Yuga began officially about 3676 BC. There was two phases of it. Okay, so all these things I think are trying to make sense of it. I don't know if everything is kind of right, but Sagittarius is the sign of belief and exploration and the wonder. It's like the higher experience of the divine as well. Philip, it's kind of about our higher purpose, and faith in that. And then the sign of Pisces, which is square to this new moon, is also about faith, belief, and trust and clarity. But it's also, everything is all our belief systems and our perceptions are being challenged, shattered, whatever, over and over again in so many ways. And we are really trying to make sense of it, for sure. But I want to read a couple of quotes from a Philip Sedgwick article. It's philipsedgwick.com, Sedgwick. So, and Philip with one L. So he calls it, he said, he said this is about letting go of undesired thinking and making a conscious effort to shunt it. An exercise that works well is that I get to be wrong about drill on a sheet of paper, right? I get to be wrong about across the top. Now add the statements of fact you wish to intellectually eradicate. So, and then, then you can look, then the second part fills in the faulty beliefs previously maintained. These fractured concepts can deal with any area of life. For instance, the fact that men are not sensitive or don't listen. That's more personal ones, but we can also apply this to the collective. All right. So he said, like you defrag a hard drive in a computer, you clear out the information that's no longer needed, that's kind of cluttering everything up, those ideas, those beliefs and things, and you get to shift into this higher perspective, which is very much about Sagittarius energy. Okay, so he said the galactic center's infrared jolt to the energy field induces the release of past memories that preclude an individual from making progress in life. Consciousness constipation passes. But anyway, I could go on. You can probably go and look that up yourself if you want to just Google Philip Sedgwick Galactic Center. But it's a very newly discovered kind of energy as well. But also, I do want to mention this, and I'm going to share a photo, and then I promise I'll just talk about the astrology, but all this is related. This is a photograph that was taken by this guy, incidentally, in Japan. Earthquake swarms happening in Japan. And this is a gamma ray intensity map of the galactic center. Spanning, you can see, about 100 degrees in the direction. So this bit was blocked out because it was needed to be able to get this image. Now, he says he has managed to photograph dark matter. I don't know whether it's dark matter or what it is, but I'm going to also, this is the first photograph like this from the galactic center. But I've also read that the galactic center has been recorded as emitting waves of something, an energy, plasma, whatever it is. And then if you think about the 3-eye atlas also kind of coming from that area and now is just throwing off all this kind of dust and plasma again and particles over time. And then as 3-eye atlas starts to leave our solar system, the Earth will move around and pass through that stream. So something new is really coming in. But one thing I do also need to research is the Taurid swarm. The Taurid, they call it the Taurid swarm because we are going to move through it in 2032 and 2036, and it contains comets as well. So, wow, so much going on. So I think I've kind of talked about the bigger picture. So let me just go back to those extras maps and just say a few more bits. You've noticed maybe I've added this other comet here. This is Okiroe. Incidentally, the book by Prasepe Press, Praspepe, that was available for pre-sale, and I got loads of you to pre-order it, and unfortunately it wasn't published. It's on its way now. So if you've pre-ordered it, it's on all these centaurs, right? But anyway, Okiroe is the seer. She is the prophecy. She prophesies, and she is hovering around here and is talking with Chiron and Eris. And on this, I just want you to keep an eye on her, because I'm going to start including her in there because she is the divine child of Chiron, her dad, and Chariclo, her mom. And, these are kind of all going to start lining up together. We've also got Nessus, which is the buck stops here, revealing the toxins, showing us the toxicity that we have been living under in so many ways, and saying the buck stops here, we're kind of done with this toxicity, is right in the middle of Chiron, the divine child, and the divine feminine. Okay, they are one of those cosmic couples. Okay, and then we also have Pholus over here, who's kind of showing us cause and effect. These centaurs have kind of walked into our solar system. They're very unusual objects, and the centaurs really are coming in to tell us something about, or to change us in some way, in many ways. Okay, so back to just, I think that's all I want to say. But I do want to point out that Manway, some of these other newly discovered objects, Haumea, who I cannot leave out of these general charts anymore, are part of this big shift that all of these astrologers are talking about, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, Neptune into Aries, and Uranus into Taurus after Uranus stations direct. But back to the regular chart, just looking at it from just a more basic point of view, having this square from all of this, with the personal planets, Mercury not yet, but Mercury will move under the beams of the sun, but the sun is under the beams of the sun. Juno is under the beams of the sun, asteroid Hecate. None of them can be seen from our perspective on this new moon. Mars is still under the beams of the sun because he's only 5 degrees away. But Venus and Mars are personal planets. Then Mercury is going to go under as well. This is kind of saying we are being reborn. We are being kind of like our personal selves is being like burnt off, literally, kind of thing, of the beliefs and the faith and the trust and how our perspectives, I've talked about this over and over and over, our perspectives are just shifting. I know mine have. I don't know about you. And I know you guys don't always agree with me in the comments. But, I watched Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, on 60 Minutes last night. And sure, I still probably don't think she's a very nice person, but something's changed within her and people are waking up. And I'm not saying she's going to turn into some, wonderful leader, but she's going to speak out. And that's very much about these perspectives as well. People talking about what shifted in them. Okay. But this is huge. This is about the perspective of how we live in so many ways. And having this new moon conjunct that galactic center and conjunct Hecate, who, to my mind, shamanically integrates the three worlds, the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world, to help us come into union with all that is, and realizing that nothing is separate, nothing. What's happening out there in the middle of the galactic center is affecting us inside. Oh, I do want to mention the south node of Uranus as well is conjunct the Great Attractor, it's called, which is all the galaxies are moving towards the Great Attractor. And the north node of Uranus is on the degree of the Gemini full moon. These new full and new moons are just amazing. And the nodes of Uranus are another great awakener. Okay. Some of it by shock, some of it by slaps around the face, some of it by aha moments, some of it by just, just suddenly I see. I love that phrase, and then the new moon is also in this quincunx aspect to Uranus in Taurus as Uranus finishes its journey in Taurus. And Uranus is in this ongoing sextile to Neptune. And I'm going to do a whole other thing with all these, how these outer planets are going to keep speaking to each other over and over and over the next couple of years or so. But this new moon is a biggie. Okay. It's bringing in some major new knowledge, some understanding. We'll be seeing the truth of so many things. But let me do my usual thing and talk about the numbers a little bit. So 28 in numerology is made of the 2, which is often said to be the divine feminine, but it's also about cooperation. And the 8, which is on its side, is the number of infinity and strength, often said to be the number of, abundance, money as well. But 2 plus 8 is 10 equals 1. So the 28 is another sign of new beginnings, leadership, new beginnings, independence, and sun energy, if you like. Okay, so, it's bringing in so many things, but it's bringing in this leadership, this initiative, these pioneering spirit, this new start, all of those things. Maybe that's why I'm kind of one of these astrologers that tries to bring in all these things. Anyway, also it's 28 is a number of balance and success. So we're being given again this opportunity to create through collaboration and hard work. Okay. 28 is actually a really number of happiness and health, but in maths, which is just another symbolic language, really, 28 is said to be a perfect number because the sum of its proper divisors equals itself. So 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14 equals 28. So something crazy big is coming in. But I also want to talk to you about 27, the number 27, because we have Hecate at 27, and the galactic center is still at 27 degrees. So 27 is a number of completion, spiritual wisdom, humanitarianism, and selfless service. It's linked to the guru or the bodhisattva in Buddhism. It suggests faith, truth, and achieving higher purpose through self-belief and divine trust, whilst also being the number of hope and manifestation. It's seen as preparing for a spiritual shift, the conscious cycle. So, I could, again, go on, but, the 27 is connected to 3 and 9, because 3 by 9 is 27. And I think in many ways that's perhaps connected to Tesla's 369 code as well. But this is suggesting to me that we are all on a path of spiritual growth. Now then, the galactic center, the galactic center has not always been at 27 degrees. Okay, so I just want to quickly show you, like, for example, I think mine, it was at 26 degrees when I was born. So if we go back a couple of years, there's the galactic center. I'm just going to quickly whiz. You can see it moving backwards by minutes. Okay, 2701 there, and then about 2000 and end of about 2009, the galactic center, from our perspective, because it's a fixed point, we are not, moved to that bodhisattva thing. So this is a process of us being given this opportunity to move into the higher energies of Sagittarius, because Sagittarius has shadow. Okay, so and this is a lot of Sagittarius coming in on this new moon, because Sagittarius can be very dogmatic. It can be about religious dogma and kind of more of that kind of energy. But Sagittarius is optimistic, philosophical, ethical, freedom loving, jovial, good-natured, which is where I get my snark from. It's usually very open-minded, but it can also be tactless, blunt, can exaggerate, be impatient, and restless, and all of those kind of things. And this is a lot, but that's because Sagittarius is always seeking to understand. All right, it's seeking to understand the nature of everything. It's seeking to understand what we're here for, really, the truth of everything. So, but it can be a little bit, it can exaggerate as well, and can be like dogmatic, which is why it's often related to belief systems. Okay. But then we've got these massive squares to Pisces, okay, with Mercury square to the nodes. So Pisces keywords are, compassionate, empathic, sensitive, dreamy, visionary, imaginative, spiritual, mystical, gentle, wise, adaptable. But it can also be escapist, people-pleasing, very vague, idealistic and unrealistic, can struggle with boundaries, and it can be very passive and indecisive. So, that we may be experiencing all of that, but really we're always being called to choose to follow the higher energies of these things. And I can see it in the collective. I can see people starting to go, oh, I'm starting to see, and this is beyond just about, the US politics and things. This is just massive. People are starting to wake up and say, we live in a horrible society, actually, and it's been kind of getting worse as we leave the old age. How we treat each other and how the power grabbers have been trying to keep on to the power, and how inequity is getting more and more, and all of those things. The shadow has been right in our face for quite some time, and people are starting to see it. This new moon is going to bring in some major new information. And then Mercury. Mercury is said to be in detriment in Sagittarius. I hate that. But that's, I think, because Mercury in Sagittarius, which I have, is always kind of like reading the next thing and exploring the next thing. It finds it hard to kind of keep up with all it wants to learn. It's not its natural home. But then I find Mercury is fine in Sagittarius personally. But Mercury is also the sign, whatever you want to call it, guide for the Virgo South Node. And I want to tell you something else quite astounding too. So Virgo, we've talked about this a lot. Practical mysticism. North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. South Node is kind of like the problem. Virgo is kind of like, we're kind of a bit attached to the old filing system in so many ways. We're attached to how things have always been. Virgo is a sign of servitude and service, but it's also a sign of wholeness and one who is whole unto themselves. Mercury, the guide, has been through the South Node, is now part of this new moon, squaring the nodes. Notice nothing else is coming up to square these nodes before we head to the next eclipses next year. I don't want to go too far ahead. But Mercury will square the nodes the very next day, right after this new moon, at 11 degrees, another master number. So with the nodes, this is kind of where we're coming from, kind of like the problem. The North Node is what we want to be more of. We just looked at Pisces, that higher energy of faith, empathy, interconnectedness, agape, all those things, so that we can go back to the South Node and be more higher energy of Virgo, to integrate it. Well, how do we do that? By integrating this new knowledge that is coming through on this immense new moon. And it's about our relationships. It's about our relationship to the earth, because Venus is there. It's about our sacred contracts with everything, all that is, but also, women, children, again. It's also about Mars, our drive and will to build. I don't know what that was. Something. Sorry if that beeped in your ear as loud as it did mine. I don't know what that is about. It's some reminder. So we're being literally kind of invited to be reborn. Now, of course, it's a new moon. And I will say that, there's everything comes through and through and through over time. So, this is a start. This is seeding something huge. Now, one other kind of thing I have been looking at vaguely is the nakshatras. I'm starting to learn about those. Now, the ancient sages divided the zodiac apart from the 12 signs. Let me stop this share. Into 27 lunar mansions. Vedic astrologers use this, okay? And so each 13, have I been talking about that number again? 13 is a Venus number, but it's also the number of the witch, the divine feminine, all of those kind of things. The Each 13 degrees has a lunar mansion. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. I'm just changing my calculations. I'm not showing you this, but this is going by the not the tropical zodiac, it's going by the sidereal zodiac. Okay, so this, in the sidereal zodiac, the new moon is at 0 Sagittarius. Okay, so I'm going to say Sagittarius. In Vedic astrology, the Sagittarius sign contains parts of 3 nakshatras, 0 to 13, 20 Sagittarius, which is where the lunar mansion of this new moon is called Mula, and it's ruled by Ketu, the south node, and this is the symbol bunch of roots and the power of destruction. I think we are really in this time where we are, everything's kind of collapsing. Civilizations are collapsing, and that it, many of us are just going to be fine, but we can see it. We can see alliances collapsing, the ways of thinking and believing collapsing, and something will be reborn from it. That's all I want to say. But notice there's 27 nakshatras, and we are that's the number of where the galactic center is as well. So this is just like unbelievable stuff. Anyway, I'm probably fried your brains, so let me bring it down and just go to the symbols for this new moon. But honestly, this new moon, you really need to get in touch with your direct contact with the divine on this new moon. You are going to get download after download. Perspectives are going to shift. New inspired kind of knowledge and faith and belief is going to come through. But anyway, the Sabian symbol for the new moon is a really interesting one. Fat boy mowing the lawn. James Burgess says this is about fitting in with social expectations. He says it's about reconciling social expectations with personal ideals. However eccentric we may be, there is always interface with society, which requires us to conform to its collective sense of respectability. He says, when someone maintains a garden so that it has both natural and cultivated aspects, the result pleases the community. A wild garden appears to threaten the status quo, being seen as the product of a lazy, slovenly person or a careless rebel. An absolutely manicured garden with no evidence of self-expression said is indicative of cold authority and extreme control. So too with our lives. A little bit of wildness and a lot of disciplined social consciousness is the formula that gains social approval. Anyway, that's an interesting interpretation. Maybe I'm gonna go to Mark Edmund Jones because his on the Sabian Symbologist blog site, he says, when the heart is in full gear, this is what his phrase for this Sabian symbol. Okay, he says, or Mark Edmund Jones said, this is a symbol of the contribution of familiar experience to the refinement of selfhood, given emphasis by the full self-expenditure required for any satisfactory acceptance into a fellowship with others. Here, a practical attention to the immediate needs of the individual as a member of his group is the effective evidence to the broader competency. Social incentives inevitably come to overbalance the more primitive instincts and appetites. And the key word is participation. I think that's the key, really, because we are realizing that we are all connected. And so whilst we can find ourselves, we still have to interact. We're all bouncing off each other with everything. So on to John Sandbacher's symbols for this degree. Sagittarius 29. The Omega symbol, transforming responsible, he says, is a house full of strange, disorienting angles and perspectives. The degree angel is Nana El, which is no agenda or spiritual communication. He says the type of security we seek in life is a reflection of our fears and the pain we have suffered. This degree is aware of personality distortions caused by traumas of the past and unresolved karmas. It knows that simple, loving awareness of these can actually clear them over time. Constancy and gentleness are required to ensure the continuance and completion of the process. This symbol most clearly portrays the need for responsible transformation at the physical level. And the Chandra symbol is thousands of sacred objects and magical implements being cleansed, purified, and re-energized. Here we find the renewing of energy, the realignment of vibrational harmonies, and rekindling of spiritual power in our world. Though these many tools used to create balance and healing, will help to clear the distorted perspectives found in the house of the Omega symbol. Okay. And the Azoth symbol is interesting. The Pleiadian symbol is very similar to the Sabian, but a man or a person seeing the underlying patterns and their spiritual meanings inherent in his past lives or theirs. I think that's... No, I'm going to read the... So hang on a second. Did I even read you? So 29. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to look into that, but I'm going to go with John Sandbacher's site because anyway. So the cards, that's it. I'm sorry if I've kind of fried your brain. I'm just astounded by how so much is converging. And I think this new moon is huge. What emerges from this new moon is going to be massive. And I'm going to look at the next 27 months in another video because there's another kind of technique that brings back that 27 again. But I'm not going to fry your brain in that one. So we got the Seven of Cups, first of all. These are the messages for you from these cards, the Red Threads Tarot. You might want to tie your red thread around. I've got one. I am dreams. This is about vision. So dreams are necessary to life. That's by Anais Nin. Anyway, this is saying, this is the domain of illusionized dreams and awakening, a place of positivity and negativity. So this is, she says, the realm of dreams holds much strangeness, but is our very own inner landscape that can help us understand our unconscious self. The labyrinth is also a space where we can encounter energies that are scattered, confused, unrealistic, and delusional. We may get lost in such places, and it takes great courage, focus, guidance, and hard work to finally return back again. So this is very confusing period. Okay, so this is really about, going within and just kind of processing all this information that comes through over and over and over. And then we pulled my favorite card because it's my life path card, the Hierophant. often called the Pope card, incidentally, but this is I am knowing. The Hierophant offers spiritual development that can be accessed through ancient knowledge, guidance, tradition, and wisdom, all of which arise from orthodox learning. But then it's all about taking this in and trusting your inner knowing. That's all I can really say. So this is, she says, stay close to yourself and keep faith within your own spiritual development. Know yourself. But the Hierophant really is about direct understanding and connection with the divine. And then we pulled the glorious goddess of discs, okay? And that's the snake. I am rebirth. We are being reborn. We've had her a few times. This is that Kundalini energy, but it's also the divine feminine. Wonderful. Now then, Lady of Perpetual Rebirth. So there's the goddess of snakes, and here we have the Lady of Perpetual Rebirth. Death comes for all of us, but this isn't a death card, it's a rebirth card. It's an invitation to clean and clear out what needs to end in order to welcome the new. What ideas or beliefs have become weighty, overwhelming, or outdated? What sorts no longer fit you? What convictions cause exhaustion or illness when you embody them? The Lady of Perpetual Rebirth is here to usher out the old and midwife the new. Pay special attention to your dreams. There are signs and symbols showing themselves to you right now that will indicate what needs to be loosened and released. The new vision, new awareness, new life that is circling you right now will also send out strong signals. Pay attention, listen, watch, observe. This is a time to let go of what no longer serves. A witch can welcome death with the same enthusiasm a moth displays when flying into a fire. She hurls herself towards her own endings, knowing her next beginnings live inside the fire of her passion, the heat of longing calling her forward. How apt for a Sagittarius sign, that fire sign. Passion. Oh, what an amazing time to be alive. And I know it feels like things are falling apart, but maybe they're falling apart to be better. Okay. I love you.